While most Nigerians are focused on rising fuel prices, electricity tariffs, and the daily struggle to keep businesses running, another story is quietly unfolding inside the country's political system. It is a story about power. For nearly 4 decades, one reality shaped Nigeria's political center: the steady influence of northern political leadership at the federal level. From military governments to democratic administrations, the North remained a powerful force in deciding who governed Nigeria and how national authority was shared. But since the emergence of Bola Ahmed Tinubu as president in 2023, many political observers have begun to notice something unusual. Nigeria's future is shaped by the decisions we make and the conversations we are willing to have. If you care about the truth behind Nigeria's politics, religion, and national direction, then this channel is for you. Subscribe to Naija Update 24/7, like this video, and share it with others who want to stay informed about the real issues affecting our country. Stay informed, stay engaged. Nigeria's story concerns all of us. The familiar balance of power inside Abuja appears to be shifting. New alliances are forming, old political assumptions are being questioned, and decisions coming out of the presidency suggest a different kind of political strategy is now guiding the country's leadership. Some analysts describe it as a careful restructuring of Nigeria's political coalition system. Others fear it could deepen regional divisions in a country already shaped by strong identities of religion, culture, and history. But beneath the arguments and speculation lies a single question that continues to echo across political circles in Abuja, Kano, Lagos, and beyond. Is Nigeria witnessing the gradual end of a long-standing political order? Before going deeper into the story, viewers arriving for the first time are welcome to Naija Update 24/7, a space dedicated to breaking Nigerian news, thoughtful political analysis, and the deeper stories shaping the country's future. Because to understand what may be happening today, the story must travel backward through Nigeria's political history. The conversation about northern political influence did not start with the current administration. It has roots stretching back decades. Nigeria's political structure has always been influenced by geography and population. The northern region, with its vast territory and large population, has traditionally held significant electoral strength. That numerical advantage often translated into strong bargaining power during national elections and coalition negotiations. But numbers alone never explained the full picture. Political alliances, cultural relationships, and the legacy of military leadership also played important roles in shaping the country's leadership structure. During the Second Republic, Shehu Shagari governed Nigeria as president, representing a period when northern political leadership was widely accepted as part of the country's national balance. Years later, after another transition to civilian rule, northern leadership again returned to the presidency with Umaru Musa Yar'Adua. His administration was widely seen as an attempt to stabilize Nigeria's political environment and reinforce national unity through constitutional governance. And in 2015, another powerful moment arrived when Muhammadu Buhari won the presidency after a historic election that ended the long dominance of the previous ruling party. Buhari's victory was not just an electoral result. For many supporters in the north, it symbolized the return of a familiar political influence at the center of power. Over time, a pattern appeared to form. The presidency seemed to rotate within an unwritten understanding that regional balance must be maintained to protect Nigeria's fragile national unity. Political elites across the country often spoke privately about this delicate arrangement. It was not written in the constitution, but it existed in political negotiations, party agreements, and electoral strategies. Then came the 2023 presidential election. The emergence of Bola Ahmed Tinubu introduced a different kind of political leadership to the presidency. He was not simply another regional figure stepping into power. For decades, he had built a reputation as one of Nigeria's most influential political strategists. His rise began during his tenure as governor of Lagos State in the early years of Nigeria's Fourth Republic. From there, his influence expanded through party organization, political mentorship, and coalition building across multiple regions. By the time the 2023 election arrived, Tinubu was widely known as a central figure in the formation of the All Progressives Congress, the political party that reshaped Nigeria's national political landscape during the previous decade. But once he became president, attention quickly shifted from his campaign strategy to the structure of his government. Inside Abuja's political circles, analysts began to examine federal appointments, ministerial selections, and policy priorities. Each decision offered clues about how the new administration intended to manage Nigeria's complex political balance. And slowly, a pattern began to emerge. Unlike previous administrations that relied heavily on traditional regional alignment, the Tinubu presidency appeared to be building a broader coalition, one that combined different political networks across the country. Part of this coalition was rooted in the political strength of the Southwest, where Tinubu had long maintained strong influence. Another part included northern political allies who continued to play active roles within the federal government and ruling party structures. At the same time, several technocrats and policy specialists were brought into key economic and administrative roles, signaling an emphasis on economic reform and governance restructuring. To some observers, this approach reflected a familiar principle associated with Tinubu's political style. Rather than relying entirely on regional dominance, power could be built through interconnected networks, alliances that crossed regional, ethnic, and religious boundaries. In Nigeria's complex political environment, that strategy carries both opportunity and risk. On one hand, broader coalitions can create new pathways for national cooperation. They can reduce the perception that power belongs permanently to one region or group. On the other hand, such shifts can also create uncertainty among political actors who built their influence within previous arrangements. And Nigeria's political history shows that uncertainty often leads to intense negotiation. Inside the National Assembly, lawmakers watch closely as these alliances evolve. Informal discussions take place in committee rooms and private offices, where politicians quietly assess how new political alignment might affect their own influence. Within state government, governors study federal decisions carefully. Each appointment, policy reform, or administrative restructuring sends signals about where political trust is being placed. Beyond the walls of government, these developments also shape public conversations across the country. In northern cities like Kano and Kaduna, political commentators debate whether the region's historical influence is changing or simply adapting to a new political environment. In southern states, analysts ask whether the current coalition represents a genuine national partnership or a temporary political strategy. Religion and cultural identity remain part of the discussion. Nigeria's political structure has long been influenced by the delicate relationship between its northern Muslim-majority regions and its more religiously diverse southern states. For many citizens, leadership decisions are often interpreted through that broader lens of cultural representation. This is why shifts in federal power structures rarely remain purely political. They quickly become part of a larger national conversation about fairness, representation, and trust. But for seasoned political observers, the most important developments often occur away from public debate. They unfold in quiet negotiations between party leaders, regional power brokers, and political strategists who understand that Nigeria's political stability depends on constant dialogue. In those conversations, alliances are strengthened, concerns are addressed, and new compromises are quietly formed. This is the hidden engine of Nigerian politics, a system where formal institutions operate alongside informal relationships that guide how power is actually exercised. And it is within that system that the current moment must be understood. The Tinubu administration has not openly declared an attempt to dismantle any regional political structure.
Yet, its governing style suggests an effort to reshape the way national coalitions are built. Whether this approach represents a lasting transformation or simply another phase in Nigeria's long political evolution remains uncertain. But one thing is clear. Nigeria's democracy has always been shaped by negotiation, by the constant balancing of interests across regions, cultures, and political ambitions. Every generation of leaders leaves its own imprint on that process. Some reinforce the structures they inherit, others attempt to redesign them. As Nigeria moves deeper into this new political chapter, the real question may not be whether northern political influence is ending. The more important question may be whether the country is entering a new era of coalition politics, one where power is no longer anchored to a single regional center, but distributed through a wider network of alliances. And in the unpredictable world of Nigerian politics, such transformations rarely happen quietly. They unfold slowly through decisions that may only reveal their full meaning years later. For now, the signals are still emerging. But across the country's political landscape, one thing is becoming increasingly clear. The balance of power in Nigeria is shifting, and the consequences of that shift may shape the nation's future far beyond the current administration. Politics in Nigeria is rarely about ideology alone. It moves in layers, visible decisions intertwined with hidden alliances, private negotiations, and networks that span decades. To understand the current moment, one must look not only at electoral outcomes, but at the intricate web of relationships that determines who holds power behind the scenes. For decades, northern politicians relied on three major pillars of influence. First, population-driven electoral strength gave them leverage in presidential elections and parliamentary representation. Second, long-standing political networks, many forged during Nigeria's military era, provided both loyalty and institutional knowledge. Third, historical ties to the bureaucracy and security apparatus ensured that key positions in governance often remained aligned with northern interests. Bola Ahmed Tinubu's rise represents a departure from that model. He did not rely solely on regional dominance. Instead, he perfected the art of coalition building within the party system, particularly through the All Progressives Congress. He understood that lasting political power in Nigeria comes not only from territory or numbers, but from creating networks that bridge regions, religions, and political interests. Years before he assumed the presidency, he had already laid the foundation for a national coalition. In the 2015 elections, he played a decisive role in uniting multiple opposition parties to defeat the then-dominant ruling party. This was a political feat that demonstrated his long-term vision. Alliances that cross traditional boundaries can overcome established power structures. It was not merely a tactical maneuver, it was a blueprint for the kind of political architecture he would later use to reshape federal governance. Yet, despite the narrative of a South-led resurgence, several influential northern politicians remain firmly aligned with the current administration. These alignments are not accidental. They reflect a careful balancing act, respecting historical influence while gradually redefining the rules of engagement. This duality creates a nuanced picture. The shift is not simply north versus south. It is the old political order, built on entrenched networks and predictability, confronting a new, more flexible coalition strategy designed to adapt to the complexities of modern governance. Behind closed doors, strategic conversations continue. Ministers and party operatives deliberate over appointments and resource allocations. Governors, particularly in northern states, engage in subtle negotiations to ensure that their constituencies are not sidelined. Meanwhile, technocrats introduced into the federal cabinet signal a turn toward professionalized policymaking, where expertise supplements political loyalty.
The emotional dimension of these shifts cannot be overstated. Citizens in the North watch closely, concerned about maintaining influence in the federal system. In the South, some see opportunity, hoping the redistribution of power will translate into better development and representation. Across the country, ordinary Nigerians grapple with questions about fairness, equity, and the enduring strength of regional identity. Political strategy in Nigeria is as much about perception as it is about policy. Public sentiment can amplify or destabilize any decision made in Abuja. If Nigeria's traditional political balance is indeed changing, the implications reach deep into the fabric of governance. Historically, the informal system of regional power sharing provided a stabilizing force. Major shifts can trigger political tensions, elite negotiations, and even internal party realignments. When previously predictable alliances are unsettled, the stakes rise not only for politicians but for the nation as a whole. Governance itself may also transform. Policy priorities could reflect the interests of a broader coalition. Federal spending might be recalibrated to satisfy emerging political partners, and development programs could see new focus areas in previously marginalized regions. The introduction of technocrats alongside political loyalties suggests a dual strategy, maintaining political stability while pursuing economic and administrative reforms. Public trust becomes central in this environment. Many Nigerians judge leadership not just by competence but by perceived fairness in representation. When traditional balances are questioned, trust can become fragile. Rumors, media narratives, and social media debates amplify these tensions, creating a feedback loop that both guides and complicates political decision-making. Leaders must navigate these perceptions carefully because a loss of trust can destabilize even the most carefully constructed coalition. Nigeria's internal political dynamics also reverberate beyond its borders. Foreign governments watch closely. As Africa's largest economy, Nigeria's political stability has direct implications for regional trade, security cooperation, and investment flows. Diplomatic partners evaluate the composition of the administration, looking for signals of continuity, reform, or instability. Investors monitor political coalitions for cues about economic reform confidence, regulatory predictability, and policy reliability. Meanwhile, the Nigerian diaspora adds another layer of scrutiny. Communities in the United Kingdom, the United States, and across Europe actively discuss the implications of federal appointments and coalition politics. Their conversations, often amplified on social media, influence both international perception and domestic discourse. When diaspora voices weigh in, they serve as both observers and informal pressure points, reminding Nigerian leaders that domestic choices carry global visibility. This global attention amplifies the stakes of political maneuvering in Abuja. A single misstep, be it a perceived slight to a region, an unbalanced appointment, or a poorly timed policy announcement, can ripple outward, affecting investment confidence, diplomatic relationships, and internal stability simultaneously. Yet within this complex environment, the current administration appears deliberate. The strategy is nuanced. Preserve core alliances, integrate new partners, and build a governance model that can sustain both political cohesion and national development goals. It is an exercise in patient, meticulous statecraft, where every decision has multiple dimensions: political, economic, social, and symbolic. The human side of this story is equally compelling. Behind every appointment, alliance, or policy shift are families, communities, and constituencies whose futures are impacted by these decisions. A governor negotiating to protect state interests, a technocrat lobbying to implement reforms, or a regional leader advocating for representation, all are actors in a drama where personal ambition, regional loyalty, and national responsibility intersect. Tension remains high. Citizens sense change but do not yet fully understand its direction. Political insiders debate the speed and scope of the new coalition. Analysts predict possible scenarios, from a stable, inclusive administration to fragile power struggles that could test the resilience of Nigeria's democratic institutions. The unfolding narrative is not merely about who occupies the presidency. It is about how power flows through Nigeria's political system, how regional identities interact with national ambitions, and how leaders manage the expectations of millions of citizens across a country defined by diversity and complexity. As the political landscape evolves, Nigeria faces critical questions. Can a broader coalition provide the stability that regional balancing once guaranteed? Will public trust hold as traditional power dynamics are recalibrated? And will the nation emerge with stronger institutions, or will old tensions resurface in new forms? In this moment, every appointment, policy decision, and negotiation carries weight. Each is a signal not just to political elites, but to the citizens whose lives are touched by governance. And every ripple in this complex web of influence offers insight into how Nigeria is adapting to a new era of coalition politics. The story continues, moving from internal strategy to its consequences on national cohesion, economic priorities, and public perception. It is a story not just of politics, but of a nation balancing its past, present, and uncertain future, where every decision carries the promise of reform and the risk of disruption. The camera of analysis shifts now from political maneuvering to national impact, tracing the threads of strategy, perception, and consequence that together will define Nigeria's political trajectory for years to come.
Several narratives dominate public discussions today, often framed as simple explanations for a complex political reality. Yet, the truth is more nuanced, layered, and deeply tied to Nigeria's historical and cultural dynamics. One common misconception is that northern political influence has completely collapsed. Headlines and social media posts sometimes suggest that the 2023 election and subsequent federal appointments have ended decades of northern leadership at the center of power. But the reality is far more complicated. Northern politicians still wield considerable influence in the National Assembly, state governors' caucuses, and within the ruling party itself. They continue to shape legislative agendas, budget priorities, and national policy discussions. Far from being sidelined, many are strategically aligned with the current administration, negotiating from positions of strength while adapting to the evolving political landscape. Another widespread misunderstanding is that the current political shift is purely regional, a South versus North contest. Analysts argue that this framing oversimplifies the matter. The change is as much about generational and strategic realignment as it is about geography. Emerging leaders across Nigeria are employing new approaches to coalition building, prioritizing networks and shared interests over traditional regional loyalty. This represents a departure from older political models where influence was largely determined by population density and historical precedent. Today, the game involves negotiation, influence mapping, and careful orchestration of appointments across multiple levels of government. A third misconception assumes the outcome is already decided, that the current balance of power is fixed and irreversible. In truth, Nigeria's political landscape remains highly fluid. Alliances are fragile, defections occur unexpectedly, and party structures evolve in response to national and regional pressures. Just as Tinubu's coalition reshaped the 2023 elections, unforeseen developments could alter the trajectory once again. This uncertainty keeps both politicians and citizens vigilant, watching every appointment, policy shift, and negotiation with anticipation. These misconceptions highlight the danger of interpreting Nigeria's politics through a narrow lens. The country's democratic system is designed for negotiation, compromise, and incremental adjustments. Shifts in political influence rarely occur overnight. They unfold gradually, shaped by countless interactions among politicians, civil servants, and citizens whose perceptions guide both policy and legitimacy. Looking ahead, several scenarios could define Nigeria's political future. The first possibility is the emergence of a new long-term coalition model that redistributes influence across regions. In this scenario, power is not concentrated in one geographic block, but shared across multiple networks, blending Southwest, North, and other regional interests. Such a model could strengthen national cohesion if managed carefully, while simultaneously providing space for technocratic governance and policy innovation. A second scenario envisions northern political leaders reorganizing their alliances ahead of future elections. This could involve forming new regional blocs, leveraging influence within the National Assembly, or negotiating strategically within party structures to regain leverage. Northern politicians have historically shown resilience, often adapting to shifts without entirely losing influence. Their networks, built over decades, continue to offer opportunities to reclaim or maintain strategic power. A third scenario is a period of competitive coalition politics, where no single region holds clear dominance. Nigeria could enter an era defined by negotiation, compromise, and shifting alliances. In this model, policy outcomes depend less on historical entitlement and more on negotiation skills, coalition management, and the ability to respond to rapidly evolving political dynamics. Citizens would experience a system in which multiple voices are heard, but uncertainty could heighten the stakes of every election and policy debate. Signals that Nigerians should watch closely include major political defections, restructuring within parties, and regional coalition negotiations ahead of elections. These events can indicate not only where influence is moving, but also how leadership priorities are evolving. Observers of Nigerian politics know that such shifts often happen quietly before they become visible in national headlines, making it critical to follow patterns rather than isolated events. At the heart of these dynamics lies the human element. Behind every strategic decision are individuals whose ambitions, relationships, and perceptions shape outcomes. Governors negotiate to protect their state interests, ministers navigate between loyalty to leadership and responsiveness to their constituencies. Party leaders balance personal influence against national priorities, and across Nigeria, ordinary citizens watch, analyze, and debate the decisions that ultimately affect their daily lives, from governance and security to economic opportunity and cultural recognition. The question we posed at the beginning of this investigation remains deeply relevant. Is Nigeria witnessing the end of northern political dominance, or are we simply seeing the next phase in a long tradition of negotiation and coalition building? What is evident is that Nigeria's political balance is evolving. The old certainties of regional dominance are being tested by new methods of coalition formation, strategic appointments, and cross-regional alliances. At the same time, historical influence, cultural identity, and established networks remain crucial factors shaping the country's governance. This evolution has profound implications. For national stability, it challenges leaders to manage expectations, mitigate regional tensions, and maintain cohesion. For governance, it requires balancing political priorities with technocratic competence, ensuring that public institutions function effectively even amidst shifting coalitions. For citizens, it underscores the importance of perception. Fairness, inclusion, and trust remain central to sustaining national unity. Nigeria's future political trajectory will be determined by how these forces interact. Whether through emergent coalition politics, strategic realignment of regional power, or adaptive leadership that balances tradition with innovation, the outcome will shape the country for decades to come. As this story unfolds, it is clear that the shifts we are witnessing are not just about the presidency or party politics. They reflect deeper questions about how Nigeria reconciles its diversity, manages competing interests, and negotiates the complex interplay of power, identity, and governance. In the end, understanding Nigeria's evolving political landscape requires patience, careful observation, and attention to nuance. It is a story of strategy and adaptation, ambition and compromise, influence and resilience. And while the full impact may only be revealed over years, one truth is certain: the nation is in the midst of a political chapter that could redefine how power is distributed, exercised, and perceived across its regions. If this analysis helped you understand what is really happening behind the headlines, share this video with someone who needs the full picture. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned to Naija Update 24/7 for more updates.